morning, everyone. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I'm Jessica Davis coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Actually, I'm at Duquesne University this morning where I teach in addition to practicing at my clinic and perform physio. So I'm up early. I apologize. This is a little bit earlier than usual. I have a class that I'm teaching this morning at our usual time when we do this podcast and live show. So today I'm coming to you talking about the deep squat for the dancer. And what inspired me to talk about this topic was actually I spent all weekend with Zach Long with the Fitness Athlete Live. We had him come to Pittsburgh at CrossFit TPA. And I have to admit, I was incredibly inspired. I wasn't surprised. I suspected that I'd be inspired by this weekend. And the whole weekend, of course, what I kept thinking was, how can I apply this for the dancer? And what does that mean? We spent a lot of time in the course talking about analyzing the squat position. And so lo and behold, when I went home and I was looking for some research regarding this topic with dancers, I found a very interesting article that was published in the Journal of Dance Medicine and Science in 2018. And so the article was looking at the FMS, the functional movement screen, and seeing if it could be used as a predictor for mechanical loading and performance in the dancer. So previous literature up to this point has found that the FMS was not an exact ideal tool for dancers specifically. However, they have said that using the single leg stance squat or descending in single leg stance could be a predictor for potential mechanical faults in the dancer. So when they did this study, I found it very interesting. So they took 25 university level dancers and they had them perform the dance aerobic fitness test, abbreviated the DAFT. So what the dance aerobic fitness test is it utilizes different parameters to assess the physiological response to exercise in dance-specific motions. So it's a great test. It's been utilized in research from some of the dance articles. So they used this test. They had the dancers perform that, and they also had them perform the FMS. They attached, when they did the DAFT, they attached an accelerometer to the CTJ. Now, if you look at the later in the article, they do say that perhaps this wasn't the best location for this accelerometer because most of the movements are done, lower extremity wise. So if they could have put it lower in the lower extremities, it may have been a better predictor. So what they were looking for in measuring was the player load. So the player load is an arbitrary unit that they used to indicate the acceleration and changes instantly in a three-planar motion of movement. So again, they perform the DAFT with the dancers, and then they use multiple linear regression, and they assess different parameters of the FMS to see, well, what does this predict and how could we utilize different parameters? And what they found, which was really interesting, was the number one predictor for mechanical loading for the dancer, a predictor of their ability to sustain proper mechanical loads, was the deep squat. So again, we talked a lot about that this weekend with the Fitness Athlete Live. And for those of you who haven't taken it, I encourage you, please take it because it's incredibly inspiring. Also take my course. For those of you that are interested in dance medicine and science, I'd love to have you. But anyway, so what they looked at specifically for the deep squat was the the deep squat performance. They found that it was directly related to the mechanical loading during the DAFT. So they found that if dancers if they performed poorly on the deep squat, for example, if they had weakness, if they had limited mobility, specifically in dorsiflexion, which is not surprising because we do see this in dancers. And one thing I also learned this weekend, which was very inspiring to me, was the ability to isolate. We often talk about limited dorsiflexion specifically to talocrural movement, or is it a soft tissue restriction in the gastric or soleus? And Zach eloquently describes this lateral glide positioning that can affect the lateral glide. And this is really paramount in dancers as well, so it's a neat test. So we know that dancing requires a significant amount of activation of the glutes, correct? So they have to activate that. We talk a lot about dancers sometimes don't have the proper motor control, and they also sometimes do not properly activate their glutes. So the deep squat has been shown in research to be an excellent movement to activate the glute musculature. So why are we not having our dancers perform the deep squat as an exercise? So Basically, they suggest in this article that it should be part of the standard assessment with our dancers. Put them in the overhead deep squat position, assess all of the parameters as you would in the FMS, and if they score poorly, figure out with your assessment what aspects they're not performing well in, and then create that as part of your treatment. So the other interesting finding was the non-dominant hamstring hurdle step. That was the other parameter. That was the second parameter that was also linked with being indicative of poor mechanical loading. So that's another thing to assess too. So basically, it's good to look at loading the dancer too. So one of the things that I discovered this weekend in my reflections was, it's obvious, I'm sure for those of you, but if you don't properly load a patient when you're doing this test, you may not see the parameters that you would expect. So remember the athlete and the dancer in front of you, because they are very strong. And so you may need to have the proper loading to see some mechanical faults. And when you see those mechanical faults, again, do a proper assessment. So create treatment plans that are designed to identify the impairments and be creative with your dancer. So again, I found this very interesting. So basically, if we can, as we know, prevent injuries in our dancers and minimize those mechanical loading, then we know that most of dance injuries are due to repetitive overuse and improper loading. So if they're not achieving the proper load mechanics, this might be a nice, useful exercise and test parameter to consider in your dance medicine evaluation with your dancer. So I know this was quick, but hopefully it was insightful this morning. And I thank you for all of you actually who are here this morning, bright and early. And as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I want to just give a little heads up. I will be teaching the management of the performing artist in a couple weeks, September 21st and 22nd, here in my hometown at my clinic, Perform Physio in Pittsburgh. I hope to see all of you there. It would be wonderful to have you and to just talk all things dance and get inspired. So have a wonderful morning, great Tuesday, and remember to do a deep squat with your dancer. Have them complete that, and you might find some things that are pretty insightful. So have a wonderful morning. Thank you for listening, and take care, everyone.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.